Great. All right. Good evening, all. We have a small but mighty audience. I love it. It keeps it nice and close knit for us to have maybe even some engagement. So hopefully you as students, attendees will maybe engage with us a little bit and drop some questions. But welcome to tonight's Health Professions Week live event. My name is Dr. Kameron Matthews. I'm a family physician located in Washington, D.C., and I'm one of the co-founders of an organization called the Tour for Diversity in Medicine, where we do a lot of outreach to high school and undergraduate students around the country to really push them into the health professions, just motivate them and make sure they know that this is an option for them. I am eager to always partner with Health Professions Week just because I think this is a great opportunity for all of you to learn and really expose yourself to options that maybe you weren't quite aware of. I think probably all of us on the panel tonight needed that kind of push, needed that exposure, needed to have those conversations to maybe feel a little bit more motivated. And that's what this great actual month of events is for all of you. But tonight is actually something really special. Tonight we are having a conversation not about the clinical side of medicine and pharmacy. This is actually more about probably, this is why I wanted to moderate, probably the more exciting part of healthcare, which is honestly our role as clinicians in the bigger conversation of social justice. That we, I personally believe, and I have a feeling our panelists do as well too, we believe that there is no such thing as staying in our lane, that there is plenty of opportunity for us to not only work with our patients one-on-one, but more importantly, work with communities and advocate for our communities and advocate for the larger well-being of our patients, not just one-on-one in the exam room. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. How does that actually reflect itself in what we do and who we are and how we've chosen our careers? Because yes, you can be a social justice activist as a clinician. In fact, we push you to do so because we need more of you having this type of conversation and having this type of engagement. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. We have one more panelist who will be joining us as well. But if you don't mind, Dr. LeDay, I'm going to go ladies first. Lindsey, if you don't mind, just introducing yourself to the audience and actually tell us what you're most passionate about. Let's start with that, and then we'll start the conversation with your introduction. Tell us what you're most passionate about in the social justice space.
Okay. Hi, thank you so much. My name is Lindsey Cano. I'm really excited to be speaking on this panel tonight. I am a current third-year podiatric medical student. I go to Barry University School of Podiatric Medicine in Miami, Florida. I come from Cranston, Rhode Island, so up in New England. So I'm very thankful I'm not dealing with any type of winter, any type of snow, no cold. What is that? It's all sunshine and happiness over here. And then in terms of social justice, I'm really passionate kind of right now in making sure that I address my own implicit bias, and I hope to inform others about that and to make sure that we try to become more aware of that and how we treat our patients, especially diverse populations, and how those can be unintentionally but very harmful in terms of treatment plans, how we provide quality patient care, and kind of just our day-to-day interactions with not just patients, but people in our community. So that's something right now that I'm very passionate about, and I hope to become more aware of it as I go out and become a clinician. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lindsey. Russell, please introduce yourself.
My name is Dr. Russell LeDay. I hail from New Orleans, Louisiana. Thing I'm most passionate about for sure is Black Boy Joy. Mental health in young Black children is something that I'm probably gonna die on that hill. I'm an incoming triple board resident at Indiana University in Indianapolis, Indiana. The only Black man in the country to match in the triple board residency this year. And I'm really excited to pour what I have into this. I'm probably best known for the work that I've done with the 15 White Coats, which is this really amazing organization that was founded after a photo of 15 Black medical students was taken in front of the Whitney plantation. I organized that photo after I had a conversation with my daughter where she told me I finally understand why it's such a big deal to be a Black doctor in America. Because she was walking on the ground that slaves were once on, and when we got in the car, she said, "Dad, man, our ancestors used to be slaves." And it kind of hit me, and I told him, like, man, we could show the world how far Black people have come. And that's exactly what we did, and it caught the world by shock. And we've been rolling ever since, and we ain't stopping no time soon.
Love it. Love it. Dr. LeDay, I told you before we got on, I'm gonna say it to everybody publicly, I fangirl all about y'all in the 15 White Coats. I've been following y'all on IG, everything. I'm just so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here to share your experiences with the audience. Really like fangirl, like I'm giggling. It's crazy. All right, our third panelist, Juan. I know it seems like you can't get on camera, but I would still like to see if maybe you can join the conversation, at least audio. Can we hear you?
Of course, I'm still here. And, you know, we've gone through Zoom and camera things for so long since COVID, and the fact that we're still dealing with camera issues like I am tonight is definitely, you know, a surprise, but here we are. I am grateful. But thank you everyone for being here tonight. Quickly introducing myself. My name is Juan Rodriguez. I'm a final year student pharmacist at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in Memphis, Tennessee, and an incoming health system administration resident at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I grew up in Kosciuszko, Mississippi. As you can imagine, there's not a whole lot of people here in my community that I identified with growing up, not a whole lot of Latino individuals, but as I kind of progressed through my undergraduate career and then my professional school career, one of the things that I was super excited about or super involved with was just making sure that our youth were exposed to individuals that looked like them. Something that I was highly passionate about through pharmacy school. I was highly involved with the American Pharmacists Association, the student sector of it, which I served as the national president for. And one of my presidential theme this year was unity and diversity, to just make sure that everyone within our profession felt heard. We actually ended up, we had an initiative, the Academy of Student Pharmacists, to change the oath of the pharmacist or to modify it to be more representative of what our profession is now and to advocate for health equity for our patients. Which is, you know, kind of leads back to that question that Dr. Matthews said. It's like, what are you most passionate about? You know, I'm passionate about making sure that our professions are representative of the patients that we serve, and regardless of where we stand within our profession, that we're advocating for all of our patients, regardless of who they are and where they stand at.
Well said, Juan. Thank you so much. And I'm just really glad that we can still have this conversation, even though we can't see you, but I see you. I see you. I feel you on this video. So that's good. So I just want to open this conversation because I kind of quoted what was, for me, a pretty just disappointing conversation on Twitter. I think it was a couple of years ago, right, when we were talking about kind of gun rights and everything, that whole hashtag about stay in your lane, and this is our lane, right, as healthcare professionals, that we almost need to not accept the fact that people want to silence us, even though I would argue we're most prepared to be advocates and to speak in this space, right? That's what I wanted to hear from you guys. Why do you think that we as healthcare professionals make good advocates?
Yeah, I'll jump right in. I think it's because, to be honest, the way I think about it is I've accomplished so much that I should have a voice. Like, I earned a voice. I earned the right to be able to say something. At this point, I should be a leader. Like, with the level of education I have at this point, if I'm not a leader, then what am I? Like, what have I learned if I haven't learned how to be a leader? If I have a PhD, if I'm not a subject matter expert and I can't speak on it, then what have I done? You know, I've been a Black man in this country for 35 years. If I can't speak on being a Black man in this country and the only thing I could do is just speak about medicine as a doctor, and I only studied medicine for 4 years, but I've been a Black man for 35 years. I've been studying being a Black man in America for 35 years. I don't know nearly as much about medicine as I do about being a Black man in America. So I'm gonna speak on the thing I know the most about, you know, and I think there's just like this urge to not say anything because we're scared of what's gonna happen. But I think I'm gonna quote my dear frat brother who passed away, Brother John Lewis, who said, if you're gonna get into any kind of trouble, get into good trouble. And it will come at a cost, but that's a cost I'm always willing to pay. Because my children gonna look at me and hold me accountable. Dad, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you do something? I don't ever want that to happen. So, yeah, some things you may lose, but in actuality, you'll gain honor. And that's just where I'm at on it.
Gaining honor. Thank you for that. Lindsey, you talked about, being the strongest advocate as well for your patients and thinking, again, just beyond just what you can do for them clinically, but how we can make sure that we're connecting with them and engaging with them truly, in an effort to understand them. Did you get that sort of insight from your education? Like, do you feel like your education down there at Barry has helped you in that way, or is that something that you've needed to really own yourself and maybe even educate yourself about?
This is something that I took upon myself to educate, just to become an all-around better clinician and a better human, especially given the political and socioeconomic instability in this country. I think that now colleges and universities and just institutions across the United States kind of do like but like they just kind of want to cover their butts and provide some type of cultural competency, but it's not given the proper due diligence, not given the proper effort, not given the time or the resources to kind of really get the students, get people in this country to understand the significance of doing this and how it's not just, appropriate to their profession, their career, whatever. It's going to make them a better citizen to the society. So I think that for me, it was important for me to address these kinds of issues that I was kind of noticing. And then I also wanted to provide my own self-reflection and really contemplate on how I can become a better clinician. And then also, I think that if I address this and worked on this myself, it'll just make me not just a better clinician, but just a better person and a better advocate for my patients and a better, just a member of the society. So I think if we're going to connect, we might as well start with ourselves and work off of that. But I do wish that institutions, especially medical institutions, who see patients and they're most vulnerable, like they're scared, they want questions answered, they want to know that their life's going to be okay, and they want answers specifically from you. So I just wish that institutions kind of, provided those opportunities and really took this information seriously and want their students to grow, not just educationally or medically, but to better advocate for their patients. I mean, there's a reason why we have increased lawsuits throughout this country. Bedside manner is non-existent. So this was something that I wanted to personally change. So
love that. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I remember having this conversation when I was in medical school, don't ask how many years ago now, about the chicken or the egg sort of concept of, think about the neighborhoods that a lot of, particularly medical schools, I think pharmacy schools as well too. I'm thinking about Temple, I'm thinking Barry, you're in a different part of Miami. Think about like the neighborhoods where these universities are, and were they soaking up resources, or were those communities somewhat, a dearth of resources, facing real problems with social determinants of health? I mean, I was in Baltimore. I was just like, why isn't Hopkins doing more for the communities where we love them coming in? We love getting paid by the insurance companies for these people. Why are we not actually doing more for this community? That was always a problem I had. I didn't think it was justified. Juan, talk to me though. You talked about your work with the American Pharmacists Association, which is phenomenal. Organized healthcare is such an important part of a lot of the advocacy that clinicians end up doing, because sometimes it's that joint space where you can maybe work on resolutions together, you can work on some legislation together and everything. Talk to me about your work in that organization and how you feel like it's made an impact.
Sure, and thank you for that question. I think that when I was a first-year student wanting to get involved professionally, one of the biggest things that one of my mentors shared to me is that, regardless of where you stand in life, there's going to be someone else that thinks like you. As a student, I wanted to have a space where, one, that I could find other peers, but two, most importantly, where, you going back to your first question, that, I could advocate for the things that I am passionate about and have a floor for it and have a space where that voice could be amplified. When I think about my involvement with APHA, it goes back to that. It's like, how are we making the lives for our patients better? Speaking directly about pharmacy, it's like, okay, how can we as a profession or pharmacists, what are our roles in healthcare? And how can we, advocate for our patients in that regard? Outside of that, one of the things that, you spoke about your education in Baltimore, University of Tennessee, or UTHSC, is located, the Health Science Center is located in downtown Memphis, a very poor indigent population located here. And one of the things that our dean, the first Black woman dean of our College of Pharmacy, something that she was heavily passionate about was, okay, how is our students and how is our college giving back to those around us? One of the things that I'm super proud of is that pharmacy students and medical students here in Memphis, they opened up a free clinic to provide access to care to otherwise patients, uninsured patients that wouldn't have had access to it. And when I think about my involvement with APHA, that's something that, that when I look at it, it's like, okay, how are we opening access to patients? But how are we making sure that the right people with the right power are able to hear that to get actionable things done? Because, as much as I like to, make social media posts or talk to individuals, real change is going to come when real people with power have the motivation to activate that change. So I love involvement, I love social like advocacy, but one of the things that I'm super passionate about is, okay, how can we transform that advocacy into actual change? And how can we make sure that that change is going to go back and help the communities that we're advocating for? It's a hard process, and a lot of the times, it's a lot easier said than done. But I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to think about is like, okay, how can we make how can we organize ourselves in a way that our voices are amplified and heard to make actionable change? Because without that actionable change, there's going to be no difference in the status quo.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, I feel my advocacy started with organizations, student organizations as well. So I definitely applaud that. I would figure the first question that any students in this audience would ask, though, you guys are students. How are you guys doing this? Not that you shouldn't be doing it as students, but how do you find the time? Like literally your days, I remember it well. I still have trauma from it, like not getting sleep, in class all the time. I'd occasionally skip and watch a soap opera in the afternoon, but like I still didn't have that much like joy, unfortunately. I mean, I'm glad, Russell, you're prioritizing Black boy joy, but like, how do you find time to do what you do? Anybody?
I think you find time for what's important to you. I mean, I fortunately I'm raising 2 Black girls. So I'm watching them daily, and they're so important to me. But just as much as they're important to me, like kids just like them are important to me. And so because they're so important to me, I'm gonna prioritize them in time. And I'll also say something is very real, and I can honestly say it now. I probably couldn't say it when I was the first or second year because somebody would have looked at me crazy, but you could call me successful at this point, so I'm all right with it. I made a decision not to be the top of my class. I didn't even try for it. I didn't even attempt for it. I was like, yo, if I'm in the lower third of my class, I think I'm gonna be all right. If I'm in the middle third of my class, I think I'm gonna be all right. If I'm not in the top of my class, I'm gonna be all right. Because there are things in life that are more important to me. And this is also gonna be a very unattractive comment. Medicine wasn't everything to me. Medicine was something important to me, but it wasn't everything to me. My wife and my children were everything to me. My community was everything to me. And I would always say, yo, even if I fell out of medical school and I lose this this ability to become a doctor, like I'm gonna still have the things that mean the most to me hanging right there. And that's the most valuable thing to me. And I think, you know, sometimes just people are afraid because they put their, sometimes people put their career in front of their life.
Mhm.
And then that's crazy for me to say, because I think sometimes people think career equals life.
There we go.
And I'm sure when you hit the attending level where Dr. Matthews is, you realize, it's a job.
Did I
It's
put
a
my life on
job.
hold for a while?
Yeah, exactly. It's a job. And so, you know, for me, it's the most important thing for me to sit down with Black boys in my community, sit down with, you know, young Black kids in my church right next door to my house. Like, for me to, you know, do stuff with the 15 White House, that stuff is incredibly important to me. It doesn't mean that I won't do my job, I won't write that note, I won't stay late at work, I won't do this, but I'm not volunteering anything extra outside of that, because I'm already volunteering anything that I want to be doing. And that's unattractive sometimes to say in medicine and medicine related fields, because people believe you're not dedicated to medicine because you have other interests. But I don't know how much I care what people think at this point, because you know, what I thought was most important has allowed me to be in this position. And so if it's been working, like my grandma said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm gonna keep rolling with it this way until the wheels fall off, and we'll keep rolling that way.
Lindsey, aren't you a fangirl now too? See?
Definitely, hands down, definitely.
Lindsey, how are you balancing? How are you balancing as a student?
I think Dr. LeDay has definitely said something that I strongly resonate with, is you find the time. If it's important enough to you, you're going to prioritize it. You'll find time. You'll fit it in where you need to. Your time management just needs to be on point. But also at the end of the day, like, I think I resonate a lot with, I also didn't want to be top of my class. Like, I wanted to have very healthy work-life balance. I wanted to explore Miami. I wanted to travel, you know, I wanted to, like, take a separate space from medicine sometimes, because it can be very draining, and it can be, you know, you can get very focused and get into a tunnel vision sort of environment. And it's important to just sometimes take a break, step away, refresh, recover. And at the end of the day, you're going to be a better student, a better clinician for it. So I think that, and as Dr. LeDay has said, just you'll find time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Juan, I mean, you got to the point of being president-elect of APHA, I'm assuming the student section, right? You're not running the whole thing, are you? That's impressive.
No, I would definitely not be there. Maybe sometime in the future, who knows? But
there you go.
at least
I mean, that must mean a lot of meetings. How are you dealing with kind of those responsibilities as a student? I mean, having that kind of leadership role is taxing.
Yeah, and I echo everything that Dr. LeDay said and Lindsey said. You know, it comes down to, you know, prioritizing what's important to you. I knew that, you know, I wanted to be the best pharmacist possible to provide the best care I could, but at the same time, I knew that my involvement with APHA, that my dedication to, you know, to advocacy, were also just as important to me. So I prioritized that. My family just as well. And like Lindsey said, you know, it takes some, you know, a little finagling in your time management skills. It's not going to come off, you know, 100% all the time. You know, I always tell people or pharmacy students that are stressing about their exams, it's like, hey, you know, like when I can still remember the time that I made a 20 on my pharmacokinetics exam. And, you know, I'm still gonna, you know, I still matched at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Just because, you know, you make that one bad grade, you know, one time, or like me, more than one time, doesn't mean that you're not going to be successful on your career. But just like Dr. LeDay said, you know, just the white coat pharmacist, so the white coat of the pharmacist is only one of the things that I am. You know, it doesn't encompass who I am as a person. That's just one of the things that I do, right? So very much, you know, I can go home, take off that white coat, hang it on the rack, and take care of the other things that I'm passionate about. It's going to be a very much a personal process, how somebody goes about, you know, prioritizing their times, time managing, making sure that they're aware of their own needs. Because a lot of the times what works for someone may not work for everyone. But as we already said, it's just more about, you know, prioritizing the things that you want to accomplish, and making sure that you're allotting yourself time to be able to do those things. There will be times where it is hard and you'll have to say, okay, there's this thing that I might have to put on the back burner for a little bit so I can get these other things done. And that's okay. And just because you're putting that one thing on the back burner for a little bit does not mean that that you don't care about it. It just means that you're getting your other things done to go back to that. So I think it's I think our audience here are pre-health students, if they're not health students already. Just like, if you're an undergrad balancing clubs, research, et cetera, whatever you're doing, it's going to be like that in health school, in professional school, and even into your careers. It's just going to, every time you're making those steps, it's just going to take a little bit of an adjustment to be able to do it, but it's not impossible.
Yeah. I love telling my students, now's the time, no matter what point now is in their life, now's the time to start practicing that time management, right? How are you planning your day? How are you planning your week? Just because you have an exam doesn't mean everything else shuts down, right? You prioritize, like you've all said. So that's a pretty critical skill set that unfortunately we've all seen some of our own colleagues do pretty bad at, even in my level. So the more you can learn that earlier, the more you'll actually have an advantage over a lot of other of your colleagues. All right, we have a couple. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll actually add something to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think there's something else that's super important that needs to be said, especially to these pre-medical students, because I don't think anybody ever give y'all permission to independently think. When we started the 15 White Coats, it caused a ripple because we were doing something outside of the normal what's done in medicine.
Yeah.
And we were bucking the system because, we was literally on national TV while in medical school. And it's cool for it to be one time. It's not cool for it to be like 50 times.
Mm-hmm.
And, you in the hospital and patients is like, yo, forget the attending. Who? I know you. So it changed the game. But I will say this, though. It changed the game in multiple ways. And I say that because there's this groupthink disease that comes when you go to professional school. It's a groupthink disease. And everybody who doesn't think like the majority is going to be ostracized. But I was cool with being ostracized because I had my whole hood behind me. Like when I left the school, I had a whole community of people who was like, yo, what you did was dope. My barber was like, your haircut's free now. So I think it's important no matter where you go, just like Lindsey said, when you go to these new places, man, go build a community outside of just where you go to school at. Like I got homies in the 5th Ward, the 9th Ward, all over New Orleans, in the East, wherever, because I understood that the world is much bigger than the school you go to. And just as Dr. Matthews was saying with Johns Hopkins, like Johns Hopkins probably just minding the business that pays them. They don't mind people coming in, but they not going over there to Drew Hill Park. They not going to Drew Hill Park. They're not going out there to do no blood pressure checks. They're not going out there to do no glucose checks. They're not going out there to check temperatures, COVID tests, none of that. They ain't doing that. But if you come inside the building, they'll do it. But you have the ability to do it. And you don't have to do it with a white coat on or none of that. You just bring your culture and go be you. And you don't have to lose who you are when you go to medical school or podiatry school or pharmacy school or optometry school. You don't have to lose your culture. That's the most beautiful part, is you can keep all that. Your hair, your beard, your twanging, your voice, the way you say things. You ain't got to lose none of that. It might not make you all the best friends. Friends be fake a lot anyway, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I guess my point is that, yo, do you. As long as you ain't failing, do you. And everybody not going to approve of it. It's just kind of like, your calling in life. Like when God called you for something, everybody wasn't in the meeting. It was just you and him. So in the same way, like you got to walk to the beat of your own drum, because everybody in med school with you don't know what they're doing, just like you. This their first time. This is their first time. When they're in pharmacy school, podiatry school, optometry school, law school, they're going to tell you, yo, this is how you do it. And I always ask them, how you know?
How you know?
How do you know? This your first time here just like me. But you live 2 lives or something? Nah? Okay, all right then. This is a suggestion. It's not an ultimatum.
Love it. Be you. Do you. I love it. And I think more than anything, I hope that the past couple of years have afforded all of us, I think it has for me, afforded all of us the more opportunity to be ourselves and maybe a little bit louder version of ourselves. I have been louder. I have been awfully louder, and I've been proud of it. I think probably all of us, a voice that I didn't realize I could have, an impact I didn't realize I could have, and that only comes from being myself. So I appreciate that point. I appreciate that point. All right, we got a couple questions from the audience. I'm loving this. Please drop more in there, everybody. This is a great one. Just thinking about you being students again, almost done, thank goodness, all of you. But where do you begin your like outreach, your work? Like we're involved with organizations. Russell, you founded this amazing organization. Lindsey, you're president of your chapter of the Podiatric Medical Student or Student National Podiatric Medical Association. But like, how did you start? Like you came in as a first year, and Russell, it's like, oh, everybody's new. I have no idea what this is. Nobody, I mean, that's how we all are. But like, how do you start? Were there organizations that you naturally just, you know, turn towards? Were there other opportunities? It's usually at your university, right?
I think it all depends on who you are. Like I was already a well-connected person outside of the school. So I started outside of the school because I think when you do things within the school, you need permission and you're already trying to get your foothold and stuff like that. But if it's already popping in the city you in, you could just join in what they doing. Like the Habitat for Humanity was already doing some work and it was close to my community anyway. So I was like, yo, I just pulled up to him, was like, yo, can I just volunteer with y'all and see what y'all got going on, who y'all giving these houses to? And then it just kind of snowballs if you know how to network. Because that person gonna be like, yo, come join us for this or come join us for that. And you figure out what you want to gravitate towards. I mean, if you want to do it within an institution, usually institutions have a ton of clubs and efforts and stuff like that that you could join. I try to do the organized way of doing things, but I don't like having to ask for somebody's permission. So I just do my own thing, because that way, if we go do something crazy, the tweet didn't come from a university student. It came from an individual in the community. So, which problematic tweets happen every once in a while, but I think you got to pick and choose. And I think Lindsey said this, like, you got to pick and choose the flavor of trouble you feel like getting into. If the flavor you're trying to get into is like borderline Malcolm X, then you might not want to try to do it through the institution, because they're going to sit you down and say, we can't do it that way. But if you're trying to do it like, the Martin Luther King way with, nonviolence, then you probably could do it through the institution and you're going to be straight. You just got to pick and choose your poison. Some of us like to get in trouble and we like to get fussed at and stuff like that. But that's the people really trying to push the boundaries. But we need people in every space. We need the people who know how to do it with the eloquent words and the people who might use some choice words every once in a while.
Love it. Love it. Lindsey, you have a lot of affiliations in your history. How did you choose? Like you came in as the first year, you were just like, let me join all of these. That's what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. I think when I moved down from New England to Miami, one thing I said to myself was, you're going to take an open mind. You're going to carry an open mind throughout all the spaces you're in. This is a new experience. You don't know, you're brand new to this. Just take it in, take advantage of your education, take advantage of the opportunities, take advantage of the resources. So I went to everything. My first semester, I was at every meeting, every workshop. I did all the volunteer opportunities. I got in. And then that was a good way for me to start building connections within the community. And then it was also another good opportunity for me to start building connections within my school. So I could talk to older upperclassmen. They could give me resources. They could give advice, tell me good volunteer opportunities outside of the school. And then I just carried that kind of involvement through the rest of my 3 years at podiatry school. And then I started to get in contact with some of the local organizations, like through leadership from last year. I helped coordinate some donation drives with the local women's shelter. We were present at the Trayvon Martin Peace Walk and Peace Talk this past February, since he was from Miami Gardens. So from there, we were also able to connect with like gun reform organizations, homeless initiatives that are going on in our community. So I think I started within the institution, unlike Dr. LeDay. So that's how I was able to start getting involved with social justice and advocacy within my community. And also it made sense for me because I picked Berry due to it being a school known for its diversity, not just within the classroom, but also in the community in which it served. And I wanted to make sure that the community was reflected in the classroom. That was a priority to me when I picked the podiatry school that I would have my education from. So I didn't want to just, fulfill affirmative action, be the token Asian girl, whatever. I wanted to make sure that I was going to make an impact somehow, and it wasn't just for show, it wasn't for a CV filler, it was like genuinely good work. So that's why I picked the school, and that's how I got involved.
With social justice in mind.
Yes, it was the top 3 priority for me. Yeah.
Love it, love it. Juan, what did you do your first year? How'd you get involved?
So for me, I think it was more of a progression into how I became involved and how I found my voice. I had already been elected the national president-elect when I had a conversation. I met up with a student from Rosman University, very passionate about bringing, advocating for patients and making our oath of a pharmacist more equitable. And I just remember she wanted to meet up with me, and what was supposed to be like a 30-minute meetup ended up turning into like a almost 4-hour like online conversation about things that we were both mutually very passionate about. And we made a plan. We were like, okay, let's do something about it. And I remember I wasn't quite sure how to go about it when one of my mentors that I had made, her name is Beauty Arya, Dr. Beauty Arya. She's a professor at St. John's University in New York City, pharmacist, MPH from Johns Hopkins, so also works in the public health sector. And I remember talking to her about it, and I was like, so we want to get these things done. I don't know how to approach, the right people, because sometimes it does take, as Dr. LeDay said, a few eloquent words to get it through the right channels to to have an actionable change. And my whole thing is, if I'm going to be in this role, I want to make something happen. Like, what's going to be the thing that I can look back on that even if I don't care about getting credit for it, but I know that I left the profession in a better place. And I had this conversation with her, and thankfully the student pharmacist representative, they get a seat on the board of trustees for the American Pharmacists Association. And she said, Juan, like, you're a board member, like, your voice counts. You're these people's boss. Like, make your voice heard. And I remember I was like, you know what, like, let's do it. Like, I'm gonna get the strength to get it. To do it, I remember I approached staff and I was like, this is something that I'm like hugely passionate about. There's other students that care about this. How can we make it happen? And I think that once they heard there's other students passionate about this, they were really on board, and they started working within themselves, and they started trying to figure out if we're going to do this, how can we approach the right people. The American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy thankfully actually had something internal going within themselves at that time as well. So APHA, AACP approached themselves and they said, okay, let's make it happen. Let's, not only is there support from the communities, but there's supports from our students that want this as well. And there was a whole task force that was brought forth together to, advocate for these changes. And it didn't happen, off the bat. I wouldn't consider myself, hearing Dr. LeDay speak to me is very inspirational, because he was like, he is someone that made his own voice. Like, I'm a shy individual. I'm a person that, sometimes I don't know how to make my own voice, but, talking with the right people, connecting with others that, shared thoughts with me, we made things happen, because we just kept moving forward. We didn't give up, and oftentimes, you don't have to be the loudest one in the room. You don't have to be the quietest one in the room. All you have to do is find people who share that mind space with you, work together to move things forward and move your ideas forward. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of talking with the right people, talking with your mentors, seeing how you can get connected with the right individuals to make that positive change. It can take time, but if you're passionate about it, it will lend itself forward.
I love that. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the most quiet. You just got to be in the room. You just have to be passionate about something. I think that's what I'm hearing from you on. That's excellent. Another question from the audience. I really like this one. And I think it actually, I think we can expand upon it. Is it possible to make the change towards the education of social discrepancies and other issues becoming a mandatory part of our training curriculum? Do you think this will make a difference in those who are reluctant to change? So if we tried to build this into our actual training, do we think this will make a difference? I don't know.
So I'll go ahead and start this one. I think there will always be individuals who are going to be resistant to change, no matter, you know, what we do. I definitely think it is one of those things that would help. You know, education is where we begin. Education is, you know, where we can start. But I do think that there's going to be always some sort of hesitancy or resistance from certain individuals, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, we do want the most that we can do to advocate for our patients. But just because there's resistance doesn't mean that you can still, that you don't, you know, that you can't put your best foot forward to advocate for those things that you're passionate about. You know, I definitely think that if our, you know, our curriculums were to integrate more of these topics into them, that there would be more healthcare professionals that would be open or would be receptive, you know, to these ideas. But oftentimes that, you know, that takes time, that, you know, takes advocacy, that takes, you know, professors wanting to be open to this and to advocate for these changes. But, you know, I definitely would be interested in hearing other people's opinions.
Lindsey, Russell.
Juan definitely makes a lot of great points. I totally agree that there will definitely be some resistance from some individuals if we try to implement these, but also with current curriculum, like we're educated in a way to take a test. Like it's the application portion. There is a disconnect between material taught to us and the application portion of that information. So I think if we could incorporate it in such a way that we don't get some type of formal assessment, it will make the changes a little bit easier to deal with, I think. So it becomes less of studying for a test and more of a conversation. And I think advocacy from maybe younger professors makes it come across more relevant. I mean, it'll always be relevant to our society, but I think older professors tend to be stuck in their ways. They're tenured. They don't really need to change. You know, they don't feel like they need to change. They've kind of just did what they had to, you know. And so I think having that mix with advocacy from younger, more experienced younger but experienced professors, and type of like maybe a seminar, open discussion type of structure for this to be built into the curriculum may be more beneficial than just going about it how lectures are taught these days, where it's material, test, material, test, material, test, and then for a grade. And I don't necessarily think that this would be, you know, something that should be graded, but it is important and is definitely relevant in how we deliver, you know, quality patient care.
Perfect. Perfect. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I think it's been perfectly said by Lindsey, that the advocacy, especially for our patients, I think it requires like a core check first. Like if you're not aligned with like your patients being first, right, which really comes from how much do you appreciate the community your patients come from. I like to call this issue that we have with patient provider discordance like a valuation problem. It's a valuation problem. It's like a company, right? Like if you look at a company, you go evaluate a company. If you think that company is worth something, then you're gonna invest energy, you're gonna invest time, you're gonna invest like everything you have into it, right? But then if you think like, this is, you know, this is like a mediocre company, or this company might not make the earnings, you know, they might not make their first quarter, second quarter, third quarter profit margins, you know, you're just not gonna pay as much attention to it. And I think the same issue happens in medicine so often that it's kind of normalized to the point that now we have these huge health disparity conversations that we have, right? Which is really just a valuation problem, which in all honesty in our country comes from our slavery issue that we don't want to talk about, but that's a whole nother conversation. and just the way we talk about the others. Mindy Fullerlove, who is Dr. Mindy Fullerlove, who is an amazing social psychiatrist from the New School in New York City, did a TED Talk, I think back in 2018, and she called it the ecology of inequality. So when an entire living system is based on inequality in others, then you kind of know what to expect, right? And we see it happening over and over and over, to the point of where, like, we have residents dying from childbirth, a physician. Like, that's crazy. Even people who can, self-evaluate issues with their body and tell you, like, yo, something's not right, and they still not getting the right care. I mean, that's a valuation problem. And I think it's on us, the folks who really have it together, the Camerons of the world, the Lindseys of the world, to be so loud that it makes people uncomfortable. And it's gonna make them uncomfortable to do one or two things. I guess one or three things. They're gonna treat you like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and assassinate you. They're gonna kick you out and send you somewhere else, or they're gonna change. They're gonna change. And I think it was Lindsey who said that, like, people are individuals. I don't have a problem with people not changing, because there's a book called Who Moved My Cheese, and it talks about how some people are very averse to change. I don't have a problem with people not changing, because some people are definitely stubborn. But get out of my way. Like, you don't have to change, but just move out of the way. Like, be quiet and be stubborn over there. Don't be stubborn and affecting patient outcome, because then that's just plain stupid. So I think, that's just the way that I see it. And that's my piece. That's my piece with it.
I love it. I love it. So I reflect on my own career, and I didn't go too much into my background, but I decided I needed to be a better advocate for my patients, and I left medical school and went to law school. I don't know if any of y'all saw my bio, but I stepped away completely, because I was in my third year of medical school seeing one patient at a time, but every patient was coming in that exam room with the same exact problem. And it was a problem we were just putting a Band-Aid on, throwing some antihypertensive medicine at blood pressure. What's that going to do? It's just going to bring it down temporarily. It's not fixing the actual cause. It's not fixing the issue. And I got so frustrated. And one of my mentors, made me realize law was better for me, because she asked me, and I love this, and I share the story all the time. She asked me a very simple question: do you want to be a seeker or a user of data? Because we were talking about, like, research. We were talking about going into public health school, because so many of us come into healthcare thinking, oh, we'll do something in public health. And she said, do you want to be a seeker or user of data? And my gut reaction, I don't care where it comes from. I want to use it. I want to use it, and I want to fix things. And so for me, being an advocate started with law school, but then really came with the rest of my career. All of my positions, including my current one, I consider myself an advocate, a physician advocate, first and foremost. So what I'm wondering is, where do you think you guys, the three of you, knowing this is what you're doing at the beginning, the beautiful beginnings of your careers? I love seeing where you guys are, but I want to know, where do you think you're going to go? Where do you think you're going to take this? I know you have an image, you see yourself, and it doesn't have to be all perfectly sculpted and everything. Juan, let me start with you. Where do you think you're going to, I don't even care, 5, 10 years somewhere. Where do you think you're going to be? What are you going to be doing?
Sure. Kind of reflecting back on that comment you said of, how can we, one of the things that I loved about pharmacy school was, we got to see patients individually, and, we could, make recommendations to our physician colleagues, our provider colleagues about, what best to treat a patient. But one of the things that was most frustrating was kind of like you said, it's just one thing after the other, just one thing after the other. And within the health system space, I was like, how can we activate change on a broader scale to make permanent changes for the betterment of our patients? How can we increase accessibility to medications to patients who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford it? One of the people that I looked up to is actually my boss. I work as a pharmacy intern in a hospital outpatient pharmacy, and while still going along with the what our health system wanted, she implemented a change where she allowed for indigent patients within our community to still receive either at very low cost medications or free medications, for regardless of where they were. And that inspired me some. It's like, we have these pharmacist leaders who are able to, develop these programs that allow access to care for patients who otherwise wouldn't get it. And that's what I wanted to pursue, a health system administration residency. I don't know exactly what level of administration I'll be in. I just know that I want to be in a space that will allow me to create opportunities for patients, because ultimately that's what I want. I grew up in a poor household. My mom, she's been taking medications for years. Having to go to the clinic, having her choose between, paying for her meds or providing care for us, for me and my sister. And that's one of the things that I don't want, other people having to choose. So going in, I know that's what I want to do. I don't know exactly where that career may take me. I just know I want to be in a space where I'm able to, make broad level decisions that will, hopefully provide better care for our patients or provide accessibility.
Thank you, Juan. Dr. LeDay, really quick, I know you got to jump. Where are you going to be? Where are we going to see you that I can continue to follow you?
Yeah, I think y'all gonna find me on the big screen at some point on TV. I just want to make the idea of a minority physician so visible that it becomes normalized. And so that just takes putting it on the big screen so often. My dream is to have a movie where every doctor in the entire hospital is minority. It's like a sci-fi movie that we're gonna make reality one day. So that's where I want to be. Whether I'm behind the camera or I'm part of the scene, we're gonna make it happen. I'll die on that hill making it happen. So I'm about to get to work in a few minutes trying to make that happen.
Inspire some people. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Lindsey.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Me, just like Dr. LeDay said, I think trying to normalize minorities in medicine, that's a very big priority to me. That's also something I would like to advocate for more through the American Podiatric Medical Association, hopefully in the future, and get into some lobbying for making podiatry more of, I guess, because we always think of DOs and MDs, and I guess making podiatrists more involved in the decision making about surrounding the healthcare policies in our country. I think we're in the business of salvaging limbs. Like we will do everything at all costs to preserve patients' limbs. We do not want to see amputations because that does decrease those patients' quality of life drastically. And so that's something that I want to continue advocating for throughout the rest of my life. And also, I really just want to make sure that minorities do know that they have a space and a place in healthcare, in medicine, and just trying to make that more normalized. I think that this shouldn't even still be a discussion right now, but it is. And so, I just want to make sure that they have a space, and I want to help provide that space for them. And if I can be another voice to this, I'll happily do so. So that's kind of where I see myself in the next 5-10 years.
I love it. Oh my goodness. I am in awe of both of you, all three of you. Lindsey and Juan, thank you so much for joining. Any final thoughts of inspiration or anything to share with the audience? Juan, thank you for fighting through the technical difficulties. Any final thoughts?
I would just tell everyone to, if you're pursuing a health professions, continue pursuing it. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you think that, whether you're pre-medicine, pre-pharmacy, pre-whatever, sometimes you think it may be hard to get there. But now as a person who's, just one bit away from, graduation, once you reach the end, you're going to be super grateful. You're going to be super proud of all the accomplishments that you're going to get. Be true to yourself. You're always, you should always prioritize your family, prioritize your free time. And I think that one of the things that one of my friends always told me, it's a quote by Maya Angelou, but something that I constantly keep in my head is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Yeah. Keep that quote in mind as you move forward, because people are never gonna forget how you made them feel, both good and bad, especially your patients. And you want to always be remembered for doing well, and for doing the best that you can to advocate for someone. So just keep that in mind as you move forward through your career.
I love the connection I have with my
Exactly.
patients. I love when they say that as well too. Like, Doc, thank you. We can make a difference, can't we? Lindsey, what's your last few words?
Juan said some really great points, and in addition to that, I also just want to say, like, it's okay to take time for yourself. Make sure you do put yourself first, prioritize, make sure you check in with yourself, do self-reflections. There's always growth to be done, whether it's personal or, societal, whatever it may be. But your personal growth will make you a better person. You'll be a better person to society, you will be a better clinician. If you have any questions, happily provide my contact information. Thank you so much again for letting me speak on this panel. It was very enlightening. And definitely, as Juan says, be true to yourself. Carry an open mind and take advantage of your education, your opportunities, life, everything. So thank you.
All right, hit mute because my dog was barking over here. Thank you to you both. Thank you for the audience for joining, and those who are tuning in later. We hope this was a good and hopefully motivational conversation. That's what this is all about, that you are truly looking at the health professions as a way to achieve your dreams, to help others, and to really just have fulfillment. And I think that's exactly what all four of us definitely have. We've chosen careers that we've enjoyed. We serve others, we serve ourselves, and hopefully you gained a little bit of insight tonight. But I love to thank Health Professions Week for allowing us to convene tonight. And with that, we will bid you adieu. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.